Ism at Rome and relinquishing his title of Pontifex Maximus. The senior Augustus also became unpopular with his own Roman troops because of his close association with so-called barbarians. He reportedly recruited Alans to his personal service and adopted the guise of a Scythian warrior for public appearances. Meanwhile, Gratian, Valentinian II and Theodosius were joined by a fourth Augustus. Theodosius elevated his oldest son Arcadius to Augustus in January 383, in an obvious attempt to secure succession. The boy was still only 5 or 6 years old and held no actual authority. Nevertheless, he was recognized as a co-emperor by all three Augusti. 388, Rebellion of Magnus Maximus. The increasing unpopularity of Gratian would cause the 4 Augusti problems later that same year. Magnus Maximus, a general from Hispania, stationed in Roman Britain, was proclaimed Augustus by his troops in 383 and, rebelling against Gratian, he invaded Gaul. Gratian fled from Lutetia, Paris, to Lugdunum, Lyon, where he was assassinated on the 25th of August 383, at the age of 25. Maximus was a firm believer of the Nicene Creed and introduced state persecution on charges of heresy, which brought him into conflict with Pope Siricius, who argued that the Augustus had no authority over church matters. But he was an emperor with popular support, as is attested in Romano-British tradition, where he gained a place in the Mabinogion, compiled about 1,000 years after his death. Following Gratian's death, Maximus had to deal with Valentinian II, at the time only 12 years old, as senior Augustus. During the first few years, the Alps would serve as the borders between the respective territories of the two rival Western Roman emperors. Maximus controlled the Praetorian prefecture of Gaul. He assumed the government at Augusta Trevorum, Trier, the prefecture's capital. Maximus soon entered negotiations with Valentinian II and Theodosius, attempting to gain their official recognition. By 384 negotiations were unfruitful, and Maximus tried to press the matter by settling succession as only a legitimate emperor could do, proclaiming his own infant son Flavius Victor an Augustus. The end of the year found the empire having 5 Augusti, Valentinian II, Theodosius I, Arcadius, Magnus Maximus and Flavius Victor, with relations between them yet to be determined. Theodosius was left a widower in 385, following the sudden death of Aelia Flaccilla, his Augusta and the mother of Arcadius and Honorus. In 386, Maximus and Victor finally received official recognition by Theodosius but not by Valentinian. In 387, Maximus apparently decided to rid himself of his Italian rival. He crossed the Alps into the valley of Po and threatened Milan. Theodosius was remarried to the sister of Valentinian II, Galla. After Thermotha Justina fled with the young emperor to Theodosius's territory to escape Magnus Maximus's invasion of Italy. The marriage secured closer relations between the two Augusti. Theodosius indeed campaigned west in 388 and was victorious against Maximus. Maximus himself was captured and executed in Aquileia on the 28th of July 388. The Magister Militum Arbogast was sent to Trier with orders to also kill Flavius Victor. Theodosius restored Valentinian to power and through his influence had him converted to Orthodox Catholic Christianity. Theodosius continued supporting Valentinian and protecting him from a variety of usurpations. 379–457, Valentinianic Theodosian dynasty. Detail of one of the carved reliefs on the obelisk of Theodosius in Istanbul, Constantinople, showing Roman Emperor Theodosius I surrounded by members of his court and receiving tributary gifts from foreign emissaries. Late 4th century AD. The division of the empire after the death of Theodosius I, c. 395, superimposed on modern borders. Western Empire, Eastern Empire 392-394, Rebellion of Eugenius. In 392 Valentinian II died mysteriously in Vienna. Arbogast, who may have killed him, arranged for the appointment of Eugenius as emperor. However, the Eastern Emperor Theodosius refused to recognize Eugenius as emperor and invaded the West, defeating and killing Arbogast and Eugenius at the Battle of the Frigidus. He thus reunited the entire Roman Empire under his rule, the last emperor who had practical power over the whole empire. On his death in February 395, the two halves of the empire went to his two sons Arcadius and Honorius. 395-423, Arcadius and Honorius. Arcadius became ruler in the east, with his capital in Constantinople, and Honorius became ruler in the west, with his capital in Milan and later Ravenna. The Roman state would continue to have two different emperors with different seats of power throughout the 5th century, though the Eastern Romans considered themselves to be the only ones who were fully Roman. Latin was used in official writings as much as, if not more than, Greek, and the two halves were nominally, culturally and historically, if not politically, the same state. Arcadius died in 408. Having already elevated Isiphanes' son Theodosius II to Augustus in 402. Theodosius I reigned for more than 40 years. Theodosius had two sons and a daughter, Pulcheria, from his first wife, Alia Flaccilla. His daughter and wife had died in 385. By his second wife, Galla, the daughter of Valentinian the Great, he had a daughter, Galla Placidia. His son Gratian did not survive infancy. Galla Placidia, having grown up at Constantinople, married first Athalf, king of the Visigoths, and then the future Constantius III. Both her husbands died not long after the marriages, and Constantius III, who succeeded Honorius as Augustus, reigned for less than a year. Galla Placidia and Constantius had two children, the future Valentinian III, who became Augustus in the Western Empire, and Justa Grata Honoria. On the death of Honorius, the official Joannes seized power in Italy, and Theodosius II appointed Valentinian III his Caesar and dispatched him to the Western Empire with an army, which deposed Joannes and whose commander elevated Valentinian to Augustus on the first anniversary of his appointment as Caesar. His mother, the Augusta Galla Placidia, was regent during his youth. Valentinian III married Theodosius II's daughter Licinia Eudoxia and reigned for 3 decades until his murder by the rebel Augustus Petronius Maximus and his Caesar Palladius, who forced Valentinian's wife Licinia and daughter Placidia to marry them. On the death of Theodosius II, the military officer Marcian was acclaimed Valentinian III's co-Augustus and married the late emperor's elder sister, the Augusta Pulcheria. Marcian was the last of the Theodosians to rule in the east, and only connected to them by marriage to the Augusta. When Pulcheria died in 453 and Marcian died in 457, ending the Theodosian line, the court at Constantinople selected the general Leo I as his successor as Augustus, beginning the reign of the Leonid dynasty. 457-518, Leonid dynasty. The Leonid dynasty established by Leo I was continued by his daughters by the Augusta Verina, Ariadne and Leoncia. Ariadne married Zeno, and their son together, Leo II, was elevated to Augustus on the death of his grandfather, or shortly beforehand, in 474. Leo II, still a child, also died that year, but not before crowning his own father Zeno his co-emperor. Zeno, who was then sole Augustus, faced numerous rebellions because of his tenuous claim to the throne, including a usurpation by Basiliscus, Leo I's brother-in-law, that briefly ousted Zeno from Constantinople. Other claimants were descended from Marcia Euphemia, the daughter of the Emperor Marcian from his first marriage, before becoming emperor. Marcia Euphemia married Anthemius, who became Augustus in the west in 467, and had several sons. Anthemius was killed fighting the Goths in the west, but his brothers Romulus, Propius Anthemius and Marcianus, who married Leoncia, sought to overthrow Zeno, as did the generals Ilus and Leontius, though each failed to dislodge the emperor. A relative of Leoi's wife Verina, whose name is lost, was married to Julius, the future emperor, who took the name Nepos, nephew, from his wife's relationship with imperial dynasty. When Zeno died in 491, his widow Ariadne remarried, wedding Silentius, Anastasius Dicarus, who was then acclaimed and crowned emperor. Anastasius built the Anastasian Wall as an outer defensive works for the fortification walls of Constantinople. Decline of the Western Roman Empire. The western and eastern halves of the empire under Majorian and Leo, 460, after 395. The emperors in the Western Empire were usually figureheads, while the actual rulers were military strongmen who took the title of Magister Militum, patrician or both. Stilicho from 395 to 408, Constantius from about 411 to 421, Aetius from 433 to 454, and Ricimer from about 457 to 472. The year 476 is generally accepted as the formal end of the Western Roman Empire. That year, Aurists, having stolen power from the Emperor Julius Nepos the year before, refused the request of Germanic mercenaries in his service. The Roman Empire in 4764 lands in Italy. The dissatisfied mercenaries, including the Heruli, revolted. The revolt was led by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer. Odoacer and his men captured and executed Aurists. Weeks later they captured Ravenna and deposed Aurists' usurper son, Romulus Augustus. This event has been traditionally considered the fall of the Roman Empire in the West. Odoacer quickly conquered the remaining provinces of Italy. Odoacer returned the Western imperial regalia to the Eastern emperor, Zeno. Zeno soon received two deputations. One was from Odoacer requesting that his control of Italy be formally recognized by the empire, in which case he would in turn acknowledge Zeno's supremacy. The other deputation was from Julius Nepos, requesting support to regain the throne. Zeno granted Odoacer the title patrician. Zeno told Odoacer and the Roman Senate to take Nepos back, but Nepos never returned from Dalmatia, even though Odoacer issued coins in his name. Upon Nepos's death in 480, Zeno claimed Dalmatia for the East. J.B. Berry considers this the real end of the Western Roman Empire. Odoacer attacked Dalmatia, and the ensuing war ended with Theodoric the Great, king of the Ostrogoths, conquering Italy under Zeno's authority and forming the Ostrogothic kingdom, with its capital at Ravenna. 518-602, Justinian dynasty. When Anastasius himself died, the court at Constantinople ignored potential claimants from the Valentinianic Theodosian dynasty and elevated instead a senior officer of the imperial guard, Justin I. A's Augustus. Map gallery. Empire. Roman expansion 264 BC. Shepherd.jpg. Augusto 30 AC, 6 DC 55% CSJPG.jpg. Roman Empire 117.svg. Roman Empire full, reference.jpg. Roman Empire full map.jpg. Roman Empire with provinces in 210 AD.png. Roman Empire with dioceses in 300 AD.png. Butler Migrations of the Barbarians.jpg. Orient. Roman Power Asia minus 63 BCE.jpg. Roman Empire 117 Orient.svg. Heinrich Kurt. Asia Citeria.jpg. Asia Minor Shepherd 1923.jpg. Diocesis Orientis 400 AD.png. See also History of Rome. Timeline of